Hello and welcome to Motorsport TV and this edition of Becoming Formula One Then and Now. I'm Juliana Chiaviti and I'm joined today by Charles Bradley, Global Editor-in-Chief of Motorsport.com. Charles, always a pleasure.
Thanks, great to be here.
Amazing. So 2022 is going to be a big year in Formula One, and a huge talking point is the all-new car. But you can't have a conversation about the new car without mentioning before, then and now. It also happens to be the 20th anniversary of one of Ferrari's most improved and dominant race car, the 2001 B and 2002 race car. So between then and now, so much has changed, but let's begin with that amazing V10 engine.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing to me. When you think about this car, it's like a symbol of dominance. You know, Michael Schumacher, Jean Todt, Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, you know, that Ferrari super team of the early 2000s, 5 championships back to back, absolutely amazing performance on track. And the thing I remember most about it, seeing it in the flesh on the racetrack, was the sounds. You know, it's 3-litre V10 engine, around 850 horsepower, high revving engine, of course, 18,000 RPM. You know, it was such a sonorous delight to see to hear these cars in action, to see them on the track, and kind of a stark contrast to the current engines that we've got, you know, the 1.6 litre V6 turbo hybrids. You know, they rely a lot on that energy, electrical energy that's produced from the car. And yeah, and they don't rev quite so high. They're about 15,000 RPM, so they don't make that amazing noise that they used to. And of course, they're very adjustable. We always hear them talk about engine modes and mapping and stuff like that. And this car was a lot more simple back in the day.
So you can't have a conversation about now without mentioning all of the aerodynamic changes. Yeah. Okay, we're talking the reintroduction of ground effects, larger wheels now, different wings in the front and rear, more weight. So take us through the differences between then and what we can expect in 2022.
Yeah, it's such a different concept, really. This car is what's known as kind of a flat bottom car, and the concept we're going back to is something that, never mind this car's 20 years old, we're going 40 years back or more, when the cars had the inverted wing, if you like, the big tunnels that are going to be underneath the side pods of these cars, so all the downforce is going to be generated from underneath. Whereas you look at this car, you'll see lots of flick up. You'll see barge boards, a splitter, you know, very front wing dependent. You know, even the cars today, very similar to that. But that's the concept of this new car, to have less dirty air coming off the back of it, to allow the cars to run closely behind each other, hopefully increase overtaking, because that's what we all want to watch, right? Yeah. And so that's all coming along. And then you mentioned the wheels as well. We're going from the trusty old 13-inch wheel to the 18-inch rim. Funnily enough, this car is actually on BBS. And that's the new manufacturer for the FIA for the 2022 season.
Yeah, so in your opinion, can we expect the racing to get more intense on track? Will that lead follow be easier for overtaking?
It's definitely what they're shooting for. Of course, we haven't seen the cars in the flesh. We haven't seen the car on the track yet, so we're going to have to wait a little bit to find out. They're still going to have DRS, so I still wonder if they're 100% confident that they're going to get the outcome that they're shooting for, because they're still going to rely on the fact that the cars can overtake in a straight line when they're, you know, a second behind the other one. They should be more challenging to drive, but we hear from some of the drivers from the simulator saying they're actually quite similar. The corner speeds are quite similar, and that's the reason that ground effect was banned when it was, because the cornering speeds were so high, the cars were kind of on rails, and the racing wasn't so good. So although we're going kind of back to the future, if you like, with that concept, are we going to get the same outcome? It's going to be absolutely fascinating to find out.
Yeah, but the last 2 years, the racing has been really good. So if it gets better, this is great for the fans and everybody involved.
Isn't it typical? You come to the end of a rules cycle, you're trying to make something better, and it just so happens you have a fantastic season.
Exactly. Safety. One of the most impressive innovations made in the last decade and introduced to racing in general is the halo. How significant has that change made from then versus now?
Oh yeah, it's been absolutely huge. Obviously, we've seen accidents happen. Obviously, your mind's cast back to when Fernando Alonso went over the top of Charles Leclerc at Spa. Just last year, we had Lewis and Max clashing at the first corner at Monza when Max ended up on his head, basically on his lid, with the wheels spinning around and everything like that. That was crazy. And of course, you have to mention Romain Grosjean's terrible accident in the Bahrain Grand Prix, fiery crash. But the way that the chassis punctured its way through the Armco barrier and it split apart, that would have been horrendous without this, this frontal protection to protect his head. Whereas if you'd see a car without a halo, you can only imagine how the outcome would have been from that. And it's proved itself so much that it's not really a debate anymore, is it? I mean, aesthetically, the good thing about the new cars is that it's kind of an intrinsic part of the design. So aesthetically, it should look a little bit nicer because it's kind of a whole integrated concept into that. So it's no longer sort of a bolt-on piece. It's part of the whole design, so it should be a lot nicer.
So you've been involved in Formula One for over 2 decades now, so you've seen a lot of changes. So between then versus now, what are you most looking forward to?
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? It's Formula One, as it changes, they can change the parts, they can change the pieces, they can change the drivers, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Michael Schumacher. The sport remains the same despite going through all the eras. It's exactly that same passion, the cars, the excitement, everything around the sport. It's Formula One, isn't it? It is just the overriding thrill of just watching the pinnacle of motorsport and having these great warriors, great teams, great engines, great sounds, great vision. And as much as concepts change, cars change, overtaking, is it better, is it worse, it's still the same thing. You can go way back to the start of the championship in 1950. It's still all about Formula One.
Yeah, well said. Formula One, and no matter what, we'll still be watching. Formula One does return in March. Charles, thank you so much always for your insight.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of Becoming Formula One Then and Now. I'm Juliana Chiaviti, and for further news and analysis, continue to follow motorsport.com.